The girl remembered how she stood and held on to her injured shoulder, squeezing it tighter so as not to lose so much blood. An equally puzzled boy stood nearby. She then could not believe that the head had died. She didn't even pay attention to the blood that hardened on her lips. A year later, the same boy opened the door to her apartment and asked if she was still awake while Lee Doggin lay motionless on the couch. The guy, standing over the girl, told her to get up as soon as possible, because he had important information for her. But the girl opened her eyes under the blanket, hearing that there was news about the head of the organization. She sat down on the sofa with a sharp movement, throwing back the blanket, and with an order to give the paper, she snatched it from the boy's hands. She was holding a photo of the school in her hands. The girl tried to understand what it was and asked the boy about the school. Folding his hands thoughtfully, he said that this is not a simple school. Looking somewhere through the girl, he said that only the children of the richest chaebols of Korea go there. Lee Doggin opened her mouth in surprise when she heard that Chairman Lee's son was a student at the same school. She was surprised that he had children. The guy said that the existence of his son was very well hidden. He said that it was impossible to throw off Lee's head, and even more so for them, and they had failed to break into the enterprise. She began to follow the thought, asking why they needed to infiltrate the school first in order to succeed. The boy nailed the photo with a dagger, saying that Lee's head is old and his son will soon take his place. Lee had taken everything from them, and they needed to repay him in kind. When Doggin walked with the other students and caught their eyes on her, she remembered that they did not know anything except that the head had a son, and everything else would have to be found out on their own. She looked at the boy running to school, and thought to herself that it was easy to tell the boy to report if he found someone suspicious. Lee thought that there were not one or two boys here and how to find that heir. Thinking about her own, she did not notice that another student was standing on the road. The girl nudged the other with her shoulder and then went away, straightening her hair. The student staggered, holding on to her friend, who was staring in surprise at Doggin's trail. Jen looked around angrily, clutching her forearm as her friend asked if she was okay, but she answered that yes. Looking at Lee's trail, Jen angrily asked what kind of fool she was. After the lesson started, the girl stood in front of the whole class while everyone was doing their own thing, and the teacher said that a new student would study with them. Lee mentally snickered as the teacher told her to be nice. She thought that no one looked too special. Everyone was ordinary. The girl was walking to an empty seat at the back desk when people around her were whispering about her, and the teacher was telling the class to be quiet because there would be no morning assembly. Jian, supporting her head with her hand, grunted in surprise and followed the newcomer. After settling down at the desk, the girl replied to the boy's message, who asked if there was anything unusual and told her to be careful. It is impossible for someone to see their correspondence. Suddenly, someone kicked her desk, calling her loudly and contemptuously. Grabbing the desk with her hand, a little annoyed so that it wouldn't crash into the other, Lee asked what the girl wanted from her. Jan grimaced at the newcomer's reaction because she didn't look surprised. She looked like she was just bored. Folding her hands on her chest, the girl began to shout that the new girl is a creep and that you should apologize when you hurt someone. And Doggin only asked what kind of fool she was. Returning to one of her classmates, Jian asked him if his father had said that someone should transfer to their school. Her plump friend asked if the girl had heard about it, but in a whisper. The girl thought, counting the newcomer to the 4th level and that she was just lucky to get here. When Jen began to talk about the school's level system, Doggin listened with a bored face, not understanding what she was carrying. And she continued, mentioning the president and saying that his relatives, as well as members of parliament and conglomerates, are the 1st level. The 2nd level is the children of celebrities, entrepreneurs, and simply wealthy people. Holding a pen to her face, she explained that the children from the first 2 levels knew each other through the social outings their parents threw. But Lee, who is not at all clear who... And then she stuck a sticker with the number 4 inches on Lee Doggin's forehead. The girls around them started laughing when Jen said that the newcomer was at the very bottom of this hierarchy. While Doggin removed the sticker from her forehead, Jian put her hands in her pockets and said that she shouldn't even talk to her, because she barely makes it to the 4th level, while she is the 2nd. And then she leaned over, looking the girl in the eyes and telling her to sit quietly if she didn't want to throw back her hooves. Then Jean turned and, waving her hand to her friends, said that they were going away. And while they thought she was scared, Dagan thought they were all out of their minds, but she realized that the task would not be as difficult as she thought. At lunch, the girl stood with a tray and waited for her portion to be given to her. She looked at the steak in surprise because it was not usually served in the school cafeteria. Lee sat looking at her portion, but blushed a little when she realized that she liked this kind of learning environment. The girl was about to bite into the steak, but suddenly a message came and she quickly and angrily picked up the phone to answer. She dissatisfiedly asked if she was worse than a dog, because even she is not touched during meals, and the boy asked not to show her character at school. Jian walked over and, with a sharp movement, scooped up the remains of her lunch right onto Dagan's tray. She didn't even try to hide her smile, saying that it turned out so awkwardly. Lee was furious, thinking that everyone needed her. First the boy outside the school who was staring, and now this girl. She was already thinking of killing her. And while Lee thought that everything was not so bad, because she had 2 steaks, a fat woman climbed into her tray with a fork and shouted at Jen, saying that if she wanted to throw away the food, she could give it to her. But with bulging eyes, she took the steak with a sharp movement. Completely annoyed, Dagan grabbed the girl's hand, preventing her from taking the food and ordered to give it back. While the girl was trying to pull her hand away, Jian came up and told her friend to give her the steak. She was amused by the expression on the face of the newcomer. She threw away the fork with the 2 steaks, making a disgusted face, and asking the fat woman if she wanted to eat dirty food, and saying that she didn't change. Huang Jiyan addressed the newcomer while she only looked at the 2 steaks flying in the air. Just at that moment, a message came from the guy telling her to sit quietly. The girl's eyes almost filled with blood from anger. She grabbed Jian by the shoulders with one hand, and her eyes widened in surprise. And then she suddenly threw her back on the table, hitting it painfully and hearing a scream. As a hand closed around her throat, Jian looked very scared, sweat streaming down her face. Lee Dagan angrily brought a fork over the girl, sure that she could gouge out her eyes for everything she did and said. The girl even stopped sobbing when she saw the fork in millimeters from her eye. In the dining room, no one tried to intervene, and among this crowd of students sat a boy, visibly bored. There was a girl nearby who asked him if he saw what was happening. He even removed his hand from his face in surprise, asking who this girl was. And while the others were asking who she was, because she had gone against Jin, Dagan herself was thinking about what she had gotten herself into, still holding the fork to someone else's eye. She then loudly placed the fork next to the girl's face, who closed her eyes and began to cry in fear and relief. And then she just turned and walked away from the dining room, while the girl slid to the floor, and her 2 friends were scared and confused. They began to ask incessantly if Jian was okay, while she sat and looked at one point in front of her and did not react. The fat woman asked if her friend had lost her mind. She began to shake. Jian put her hands to her face and couldn't believe that she actually wet herself. Lee Dagan put her hand to her face as she left the dining room, and thought to herself that there was no way she could break the habit of going crazy with the sight of food. A guy appeared in front of her with a smile and started applauding her. With his hands in his pockets, the boy said that the girl was incredible there and had a very cool crush on Jean. The guy offered the girl friendship and asked her to remember her name. Dagan remembered what the boy had told her, asking her to report someone she thought was suspicious. Clicking on the phone, the boy heard that the girl's name was Lee Dagan and that she had transferred today. He introduced himself, saying that he was Han Jong-gun. And then, with a cute smile, Janoon handed the girl his phone and asked her if she would give him her number. Everyone started staring and whispering that Jonan had taken the new girl's number, and one of the girls even said that she wanted to marry this guy. And then they began to think, what level Dagan is, if Jonan paid attention to her? Then the crowd passing by decided that, of course, the first one, especially what she did to Jin. Writing down her number, the girl squinted her eyes, thinking that it was good that the subject himself approached her. But she did not understand why everyone was staring like that. Thinking that she should hurry up, she did not even look at the smiling boy, giving him the phone. But Jonan did not give up and asked where she was going, stooping to block the way. He asked if she wanted to go to the store because she had not eaten. Tali grew serious, looking away and saying that she shouldn't do that. The boy did not back down, asking why not, because she was still hungry. He smiled sweetly as he spoke. Dagan said that it was not necessary. Janoon even offered to just take a walk, because he knew good places in the city. But she still refused. When the girl tried to leave, the boy offered to show her the school, because she is new here and doesn't know anything. Looking at the boy, Lee didn't know how to act because she had clear instructions about this boy and walks were not included in them. Not thinking of anything better, the girl ran away from the boy in order not to look for new reasons for rejection. Placing her hands on her knees, she bent over, trying to catch her breath. The girl hoped that he would not pursue her, but she heard the boy calling her name not far away. Having closed herself in one of the toilets, Dagen listened to her accomplice mocking her on the other end. He joked that she had already managed to get a fan. She said the boy's name was Han Jonan and told him to check if there was anything on him. While the girl waited, the boy checked the data in the laptop, snickering when he saw something interesting. She had heard that the boy did not have access to personal data, and probably all the students at the school did. She didn't like it very much. When Dagen called him a loser hacker, the boy got angry, asking if she really thought hackers were all-powerful. The school had too good a defense that he couldn't break. The girl listened to how he recommended making friends with Jonan in order to learn something, but she thought that her partner was a loser because he couldn't even hack the website, and she ended up in this school because of his will. The boy said that he, as more knowledgeable in love affairs, would give her advice on how to get closer to this Jonan. They walked home together after school, and while Han was smiling, Lee was a little embarrassed. This is exactly what the guy recommended, to impose himself and go home together. Now they were sitting in a small establishment, and the guy was laughing loudly while the girl was drinking juice. This was the second point, to call to eat something childish, like tteokbokki, for example. And then it was possible to take several photos, and after all that, the two of them were at karaoke. Junoon sang while Dagen clung to the microphone listening to him. This was the next number in the plan, to go for a walk in karaoke. And in the evening, they walked side by side, close enough to each other to hint that they didn't want to go home yet. Another point of the plan for rapprochement. And then the boy shouted into the phone, drawing attention to himself. The girl came back and sweetly asked if the boy wanted to eat ramen, the last point of the plan. Dagen, listening to all this, asked if it would work for sure, although her face showed that she was not sure about it. And the partner said that she should trust him, and it will definitely work. And the guy also said that she should find a girlfriend, because she will tell about everyone, and the girl will be aware of everything they need to know. As soon as the guy started mentioning the phrase, "Maybe we can eat ramen," she dismissed the challenge and blushed a little, looking at the smartphone screen. Dagen came out of the building where she hid to make the call and began to look around, hoping that Junoon wasn't following her. The girl thought, why hide the surname of the heir because the surname Lee is common? And she did not want to waste time to find out who this heir was. At the same time, John screamed and got angry, demanding that the boy give her his phone. He looked at her with surprise and asked who she was to demand his phone from him. The girl screamed, demanding that the guy delete her photos that he had taken before that. She asked why he was filming and posting such humiliating moments of other people. Coming out of the corner, Dagen saw this scene and stopped. She remembered the words of the guy who told her to find a girlfriend, but it was clear from her face that she really didn't want to do it. Jian was still shouting threats, but the boy interrupted her, asking what she was going to do. Will it ruin his family? The boy said that the girl may not be afraid of him, but the same cannot be said about Yehen. She was visibly surprised. Leaning down, the boy said with a smile that she would not have the strength to do anything to him or his family. She cried out with tears in her eyes as the boy wanted to take another picture of her and post it on the internet so everyone could see that Queen Huang Jian was at a loss for words for the first time in her life. But his hand was caught by Dagen, who came closer and heard everything he said. She squeezed her wrist, and the boy looked at his hand with incomprehension. Jian couldn't believe what she saw. Was Lee Dagen really protecting her? The girl returned to the queen of the school, asking her what the boy had on his phone. She was visibly shaking, but she looked away and said that there were photos from the dining room where she wet herself and that he wanted to post them on social media. Dagen asked again, not believing her ears, and the girl closed her eyes thinking that it was Lee's fault, while tears flowed down her cheeks. Dagen was still holding the boy's hand while he shouted that they were ignoring him on purpose and that they really wanted to die. Dagen, standing facing Wonjun, and handed his phone to the girl over her shoulder, though she didn't take her eyes off the boy. She told Jian to delete the photo faster. The boy swung his fist at Dagen, angry that she had allowed herself to do so. She dodged quickly and the fist missed, only hitting her hair. And then she grabbed his face, pressing her hand into the boy's chin and pushing hard as he flailed his arms and struggled to stay on his feet. He pressed Dagon to the extent that the boy's tooth fell out along with the splash of blood. His friend stood in fear, looking at Wonjun lying on the asphalt, and Chien even covered her mouth with her hands in surprise. Only Dagon stood calmly, holding her hand by the wrist. She turned to the girl, asking if she had done everything. She replied that she did and gave his phone back while the other guy walked away. They tried to wake up Yehin. He involuntarily raised his finger with his blindfold, which protected him from daylight, and asked what had happened. The boy said that Wonjun had taken a full bite and was now lying unconscious. Jaehyun asked who he got the nuts from. When the boy showed who it was from, Yehyun looked at Lee Dogan, hearing that she was new. Clutching the mask in his hand, he asked if his friend was joking, but he began to assure that he was telling the absolute truth. Both girls were sitting on the stairs. Jian hugged her knees, looking embarrassed, while Dogan munched on the many goodies she had bought. With her mouth full, Dogan asked the girl to eat too, but she refused and said she was on a diet. Then Lee asked if she could eat everything herself in that case. While the girl was eating, Jian looked at her, wondering who this newcomer was and who her family was if she was behaving like this on her first day. Dogan, still chewing, apologized to her classmate for what had happened. She said that she did not notice that she had crashed into someone. She chewed and turned to face the girl, saying that she was just thinking so much while walking, and apologized once more. Jian, recovering from the shock caused by these words, also apologized for herself, saying that she had overstepped the mark. Returning to her juice, Dagon said she wanted to ask something. Without looking at the girl, she asked her if she knew Han Janoon. When Dagon replied that she was just asking, Jen put her hand to her mouth and, blushing, asked if she ever fell in love. But out of anger, she squeezed the juice in her hand, and it poured out through the tube. Jian started apologizing, feeling afraid that they would go back to fighting again. She said that Han Jong-gun always smiles at everyone and is always friendly, but she thinks that there is something wrong with him and that he is sometimes scary. Jian remembered that it was the first day of school when the others came to see the first years. Then Jonan came out of the class, who bumped into an older boy, but he was a little shorter than the freshman. He was the son of the minister before Janoon. When the minister's son asked if he wanted to leave, Jong-gun only smiled and apologized. And then he walked around him and went away, while the minister's son began to shout that he addressed him as you, and his friend held him. At the same time, the veins on his face stood out from anger as he stared at the freshman. It was too bad, Jean said, because Junoon had caught his attention. She remembered how everyone going about their business decided that the guy was level 4 because nothing was known about him. And the minister's son was touched that someone of such a level spoke to him. The minister's son was smiling then, because he made the life of freshman Han Jonan noticeably difficult. Jian remembered how he even threw the ball, hitting Jonan on the head, and laughed. But she said that John accepted everything with a smile, bringing him a ball instead. And everyone thought that he was suffering because he had no choice and he was of the lowest level. And one day, Jonan stood all wet while painting. That senior student poured a bucket of dirty water on the boy. Everyone laughed at him as he stood in the middle of the class. That time, he did not accept everything with a smile, as it was before. Then even the atmosphere around changed, and everyone was waiting for what was going to happen. Dagan asked in surprise how the minister's son had disappeared the next day, and Jian assured her that it was so. The girl said that he disappeared without a trace, but no one understood how, because he is the son of the Minister of Internal Affairs, and that's why they decided that there is someone very influential behind Janoon's back. Lee Dagan thought about this guy. There was a possibility that he was the chairman's son and heir. While Dagan thought about her own, Jian laughed, saying that the girl should not tell anyone. But there are rumors that the boy was killed. The girls widened their eyes when Han Jong-gun sat down next to them on the steps and, propping his head with his hand, asked if he looked like a murderer. He looked at the girls with a faint smile and said that everyone had too much imagination. Both girls were embarrassed, and Jian put her hands to her mouth in surprise. Taking the boy's hand, Dagan led him a little further, saying that they should go and talk. He asked where they were going while Jian watched everything. While they were walking, the girl was upset because she thought that there was something wrong with this boy and how much of their conversation he had heard. When they got outside and turned the corner, He stared at the girl in surprise as she forced him to stand with his back to the wall. Resting her hand on the wall next to the boy, Doggin seriously asked why he was chasing her. He smiled sweetly, a little embarrassed but answering her question. Jonan said he likes the girl. Turning away, she buried her face in her hands and wondered why this boy was so naive. But I thought that I should do as the guy advised. Doggin looked at the boy in surprise, because he answered yes when she directly asked if he liked her. She couldn't believe it was real. She tried to say what her accomplice was telling her about ramen, but she couldn't while the boy was awkwardly looking at her. The girl finally said one word, ramen, and he asked again, not understanding her. This made Doggin wonder if she was confused. He asked with a smile if she wanted ramen, thinking she was hungry. With a sly smile, Doggin asked pressingly if he wanted to eat ramen. Jonan's eyes widened as the meaning of her words dawned on him. He said that it was very unexpected and then asked if he was at home. The next moment, the boy laughed heartily and loudly, forcing the girl to stare at him, not understanding what was happening. He said that the girl was very funny and said that he agreed and that they would go after school. He said he would make ramen for her. The girl opened her mouth, wondering if it really worked. Lee Doggin was sitting in an evening assembly at school when she heard that it was finally over and she could go home. Standing in the doorway of the classroom, Han Jong-gun was waiting for her with a smile as everyone passed by, trying not to touch him. Coming closer, he asked Doggin if she was ready to go. As they walked away from the school, everyone in their path turned and stared in their wake. Doggin was embarrassed by such attention, but the boy definitely felt comfortable. Returning to her, Jonan asked why she suddenly wanted ramen, since she had avoided it before. Turning away, the guy did not notice that she was lying badly. The girl said that she thought and decided that she also wanted to be friends with him. Suddenly, Lee Doggin stopped and asked if his parents were at home, and if she could come without an invitation like this. But Khan smiled and said that everything is fine because he lives alone. She was not very surprised, because she could not even think that a high school student would live alone. He asked with a smile if everything was okay, because Doggin was going home to the boy she had just met, because it might be dangerous. She asked why, really not understanding what could happen. The boy said that they had come and invited the girl home. Lee looked in and began to look around. While the boy was walking, Doggin looked at his back and thought that there was nothing to look at, because everything was normal and clean here. The guy looked around, asking if she wanted something to drink. He listed that he had juice, water, and aloe juice. She chose the aloe juice, blushing slightly, and Junan smiled sweetly, saying that he accepted the information. Pouring her juice and handing her a glass, the boy asked the girl to look around and give him a few minutes. She inserted the flash drive into the socket to do something while the boy was not around. Folding her hands on her chest, she looked around and thought that there was not even dust here, and asked herself if a person really lived here. But the apartment was modest, according to the rumors about him. In one of the boxes, there was an album that caught the girl's attention. She saw a photo of a boy sitting and reading a book. Then there was a photo of him in a full-length suit standing at the door of a house. There was also a photo of him by the sea in a coat, because it was cool and windy that day. As she flipped through the photos, Doggin thought that Yonan hadn't changed at all since then, but she couldn't understand why he had that expression on his face. The look was the same, but he didn't have a single photo with his family. The guy called to her, forcing her to break away from the album, and asked if he wanted to put eggs in her ramen. When she came to his kitchen, Doggin told him to put 2, because this is a mandatory ingredient, and he, laughing, said that he agreed. Lee Doggin asked the boy to pour her more juice, but he, carrying a hot pan, asked if she would get it from the refrigerator. Turning, she went to the refrigerator but caught her shoulder on a hot pan. The dishes quickly flew to the floor, splattering all over the ramen. While there was a puddle on the floor, the girl ordered the boy to quickly take off his clothes. Yonan was sitting in the tub, where the ice water was running, and Doggin was taking care of him around, pouring ice into the tub. She was apologizing, and the guy said that everything was fine and he almost avoided it. While he was taking off his shirt, the girl was thinking about what she had done, and something had to be done to help. She looked at his torso, where a pink burn patch was blooming, and thought that he looked rather thin in his clothes, and now his abs were visible. She also thought about Jian's story, realizing that this boy could definitely be the one they were looking for. Jonan sat a little closer while she held the ice to his stomach and asked her if she was looking at him too much. He said it was a little confusing. She blushed at this, and then abruptly said that she wasn't looking at anyone and that he had 10 minutes to change his pants and get out of the bathroom. While waiting for the boy in the living room and sitting on the sofa, she almost shed a tear, still thinking about the ramen that ended up on the floor. When the boy came out, Doggin applied special patches and now wrapped his torso with a plaster to keep them in place. Still bandaged up, she said it wasn't that bad and that maybe it was a first-degree burn. While he held his shirt up, she looked at his torso and said that the burn looked serious and told him to go to the hospital tomorrow. Janoon screamed in surprise when the girl tightened the band-aid tighter. Before that, he had said that she had fought before and knew how to give first aid and looked like a secret agent. The girl asked him to sit down. She herself sat opposite and said that she would ask questions, and he should answer only the truth. Without taking her eyes off him, Doggin asked how long and why he lives alone. The boy answered, looking at her without blinking, that he had a desire to live separately. She asked why, and he said that he was not very close with his parents, which made her ask again why. She asked if Jen was telling the truth, not even listening to the fact that he had already called her name several times. And then he shouted to get in some sort of word and asked quite loudly if she had come to interrogate him. She awkwardly sat down, apologizing and saying that she herself did not understand how it happened. And Jonan, rejoicing that she has become a past version of herself. He said she just asked too much and added with a smile that he never thought she would have so many. Jonggun asked where the girl had transferred to them from, and she, drinking her juice, answered that she was from the same school on the outskirts of Seoul. She said that she moved because she moved, and the boy said that her parents must be very influential. He said that Doggin didn't respond at all to those who tried to show their importance, so he thought her parents were nice people, and he wondered who they were. Remembering herself when she was little and the almost disappeared image of her mother, the girl said that they were just good people. She also remembered the face of her mother, who hated her and said that it would be better if she were not there at all. She said that everything was unimportant, trying to hide the trembling that appeared in her hands, and then she said that she had to go. When Doggin got up, the boy asked a little scared if it was so soon, but the girl said that she didn't want to be late. Putting her hand in her pocket, she thought that she had taken the flash drive and that was enough for today. Janoon asked the girl with a smile about the phrase, "let's eat ramen," and asked if she knew what it meant. Putting his hand to his face, he leaned forward, saying that he thought so, and asked who had told her that in the first place. Doggin asked what he meant and what he was talking about in general. He said with a smile that that's what they usually mean when they say that phrase. They usually say it when they're referring to sex. Realizing what he meant, Doggin blushed. While she turned around and shook with emotion, Yonan said that the one who taught her this was the embodiment of evil. With a smile, the boy asked her to stay with him a little longer, but Doggin, who was angry with her accomplice, said that it was not worth it. Jonan stopped smiling when the girl told him to wait because she was getting a call. He clearly didn't like it. Locking herself in the bathroom, she answered the call, asking what he wanted, since she had written that she was going to Jonan's house. Doggin opened her eyes, hearing screams and screeches of pain on the other end of the phone. The guy wanted to ask who was calling, but the girl ran past him, saying that they urgently needed to go, and apologized. Jonan stood by the ajar front door and did not understand what was happening and why the girl left so quickly. Lee Doggin ran as fast as she could, trying to keep up. She gritted her teeth and wondered who had set up an ambush for him, because no one knew about their existence. She ran into the apartment, calling Jo Tae-hoon from the doorway. The guy was sitting at the table with his eyes closed, and everything around him was upside down and covered in blood, even his white t-shirt, which was under his jacket. As she ran to him, calling out to him again, an unknown person behind the girl swung a baseball bat at her. Seeing the unknown, Doggin put out her hand just in time. The blow of the club hit her forearm, while she leaned back so as not to get hit in the face. The girl pulled her hand back, fending off the attack with a baseball bat as the stranger clenched his teeth in an attempt to attack her again. But Lee Doggin attacked first. She punched the man in the face. The blow was so strong that the unknown man let go of the bat and flew a few steps away, and the girl even leaned forward from the force she exerted. She thought about how this man had found her, and was it Lee's head? The girl focused on one point in front of her, and thoughts flew through her head one after another. The next moment, the unknown man got up and took out a knife, the blade of which he swung in the direction of Doggin, who then jumped back, dodging. Holding onto her forearm, The girl watched as the unknown man rose to his feet and was about to run away. She yelled, ordering him to stand still as if that would stop him. The girl, her teeth clenched in anger and pain, turned around, looking at Tae-hoon and deciding what was more important, chasing the unknown or helping a friend. The boy woke up, opening his eyes with difficulty and immediately noticing the hospital ceiling. He tried to focus, seeing a blurred but recognizable figure in front of him. It was Doggin sitting on a chair in black clothes and a cap. The guy asked what happened to her hand, but the words came out simple and did not fit into meaningful sentences. But Lee told Tae-hoon not to get up, because the wound might reopen. Propping her head with her hand, the girl asked if he meant what had happened to her hand, which had a plaster on it, and when he confirmed it, she told him that she just got it from a jerk. Tae-hoon said, recalling the picture of that day, that the last thing he remembers was the unknown person turning over his laptop, probably targeting their database. The guy was disappointed that there was only one stranger, and he ended up here because of one person. But the girl told him to stop thinking like that. Doggin told him to look for a place for a new office and make sure that no trace was left behind. The guy opened his eyes, having caught the flash drive that the girl mentioned, and heard how she ordered him to study its contents. The next moment, he cried out in pain when he asked what she had with Jonan. The girl hit the boy quite noticeably on the wound because she was angry. She grabbed him by the shoulders and said that she should have explained what the phrase about ramen meant, but then watched as his mouth began to drool. The nurse who entered the ward screamed when she saw this scene. The girl was now standing in the doorway. She was just looking at how the nurse was pushing her out of the ward because you can't do that with a victim. The girl came to the roof of the building to clear her head, but saw that someone was already there. She stopped and closed her eyes, breathing in the pleasant air and remembering her boss. But I would definitely say that she is doing well and does not need to think too much. It was her image that stood before his eyes, but almost without a face. Still standing like that, she thought that maybe if the boss was alive, because she would have told her just like that. Meanwhile, the smell of cigarettes began to reach her. She was standing a few steps away from the boy who was smoking and turned his head towards the girl. But she turned around, saying to herself that it was a pity to waste time on all this, because she still had to deal with the office. She wanted to leave. But she stopped dead when she heard her name from the voice of a stranger with a cigarette. He called her. A brunette with blue azure eyes was looking at the girl without looking away. She immediately took a few steps away and turned her face, putting her hand behind her back and asking who he was and how he knew her. She looked behind her back for a weapon, as was her old habit. He didn't look at Doggin anymore, but asked if she was the one who put Wonjun in. The girl was a little confused when she started saying the name, but then she decided to simply ask who the stranger was talking about. And then 2 guys climbed onto the roof of the hospital, one of whom was wearing hospital pajamas and was the bully who wanted to post Jean's photo. The girl looked at them, and they noticed her. His friend was surprised to see a girl, while Wonjun stared at her, biting the filter of his cigarette. The next moment, he got angry and shouted at the girl, saying she was a bitch. And then, swinging at Doggin, who was sitting calmly, screamed that she was a daughter of a bitch. Taking another puff, Chaehyun made a gesture with his hand, attracting the boy's attention. Wonjun was displeased and angry, not even able to say a sentence to ask what his friend was doing. Doggin simply listened with a bored look as the boy threatened her that the next time he saw her, he would definitely kill her, and now she should thank Jaehyun. Staring at the closed door, she wondered if it was a jerk and was Wonjun. The next moment, the boy exhaled smoke and turned his head towards the girl when he heard her ask why he had stopped the boy. Standing with his back to her, the boy closed his eyes and said that he was sick of those who brag about their status as parents. Turning his head to the side, he told Doggin not to flaunt her fights and live peacefully, because this time, consider her lucky. Having bypassed the boy, she defiantly took his cigarette from his hands and squeezed it between her fingers. And then, she threw away the cigarette, without taking her eyes off him and saying that she understood and thanked him for the advice. She moved a little closer, looking the boy straight in the eyes and asking him what he said his name was. He was visibly surprised by her behavior and confusedly said that he was Lee Jae-hyun. And then Doggin, stomping on the rest of the cigarette, turned and walked away. Without turning around, she told him to grow up first and then smoke because he is a high school student. The guy was left alone on the roof and, watching how the door to the stairs closed behind the girl, was completely confused. Jaehyun thought to himself that she said that he was a high school student, but she was the same herself. Putting his hand to his mouth, the boy thought, looking at the cigarette on the floor and remembering the image of the girl before his eyes. He chuckled. Lee Dogan was unconsciously asleep at her desk when the next lesson ended. Sitting opposite, Jonan called her with a sweet smile, trying to wake her up, and the girl, waking up, did not understand who was calling her. He was in a good mood, as usual, and with a smile asked if she got home all right yesterday. The guy said that he wrote to her and asked if she had read it, and the girl thought to herself that she had changed the number, although she asked aloud if he really wrote. Dogan started looking for her phone, telling him to wait a little. But he caught her other hand by the wrist and squeezed, forcing her to look at the boy in surprise. She, closing one eye from the pain, asked what he was doing and whether he would let go of her hand. Raising the sleeve of his school shirt, he looked at the plaster on the girl's forearm and asked seriously and with murderous calm who had done this to her. But when the girl did not answer and asked again, he rolled his eyes and said that he asked who did it. Jonan stood over the girl and, folding his hands on his chest, questioned whether he really heard correctly that she was walking and just fell. The girl sat with her head down and said that everything was true, but thought to herself why the boy was scolding her at all. He said that the girl really can't lie, closing her eyes from nerves until she began to resent why she can't lie. The boy asked if she was okay, and the girl said they had to be in class. But Jonun replied that she would not miss anyway, because she was only sleeping on them. Dogan was furious, wondering why he was acting like a daddy and what was going on. A vein in her face swelled with anger. They both looked to the side. Her phone rang on the table. While the boy went to get it, Dogan looked at his trail and wondered how exactly her phone ended up there. Jonun walked over and reached for her phone when he saw Jo Tae-hun's name. The girl ran up to prevent him from seeing who was calling and reached out to take the phone. But at the last moment she remembered manners, and looking at the boy, asked if he would hand her the phone. But he took her smartphone at the last moment and moved it, holding it in his hand, and Dogan did not grab it. While the guy was standing and holding the phone with the screen up, the girl asked him what he was doing and asked if he would give her the phone. But the guy said with a smile that she was reacting strangely, and Jo Tae-hun as if he was a criminal and it was because of him that she got this injury on her hand. She lashed out angrily, asking why she should contact a criminal, but Jonan waved his hand away and said that he would not give her up until the girl had told everything in her heart. She said that he was her bodyguard. But then, when the guy didn't believe her, she swung, trying to snatch the phone sharply, but she couldn't do anything. Junan raised the phone higher than himself, and the girl tried to jump up to get it and got angrier and angrier. Dogan smiled contentedly as she managed to get hold of her phone. Lee Jae-hyun appeared at the door, interrupting them and apologizing to the nurse for distracting her. But what he saw was not what he had hoped for, saying that he needed something for a migraine. Jo-noon was lying on the floor with Dogan sitting on top of him. The girl widened her eyes, realizing the situation she was in, and mentally cursed. Lying under the girl, Jo-noon said with a smile that he was sorry because they could have fallen a little differently. Jae-hyun came and went through the pills that were sitting on the table and turned to the girl while she was squatting and looking at the phone that he took from Junun. He kept his eyes on the girl in confusion. While the girl was checking her phone and the screen after their fall, Junun asked if they knew the boy, and she said yes, and it was yesterday. He asked about yesterday, because she went home from him, but he heard from the girl that he should not get angry about it. Jae-hyun drew attention to himself when he said that it was not his hobby to pry into someone else's life while he was taking the right pill. But, drinking the pill with water, he said that it was still a little annoying. Sitting on the floor, Jonan looked up at the boy and asked if he was annoying. But then he was speechless when Hae-hyun continued to talk about how relationships with girls are always difficult, and he's also flirting with a new girl. With a smile, he asked if Jae-hyun was suddenly jealous. But even the vein on his face swelled with anger when he replied that Jonan had gone mad because he said that. The guy was visibly amused, saying that he was reacting too violently and asked if he was always so interested in others. While they were talking, the girl quickly left the medical center, checking her phone and thinking to herself that she had finally gotten out of there. She thought that these two were draining all the juices out of her and that she was even starving with such an emotional swing. She decided that it was necessary to eat. Ji-yeon asked Kim Soo-jung if she wanted to go to the bathroom with her, forcing her to look away from her phone. She began to excuse herself for calling the teacher, and that she couldn't do it now, and said that they would come down sometime later. Returning to another friend, she asked if their shopping trip was still in force, but the girl replied that she had already made arrangements for today. Stretching, Jian left the classroom and noticed her friends, asking them if they were suddenly going to the cafeteria. One answered that she was on a diet, but Sujin rolled her eyes, muttering something unintelligible, and then agreed that she was too. And then Sujin decided to play something different, and, clutching her stomach, said that she was in pain and ran away. Jian stayed to watch as Sujong, another friend, left. With her hands folded on her chest, she walked through the corridors, attracting the attention of everyone who was around. It was obvious that she was uncomfortable walking alone. The girl even grabbed her head, thinking, "Is she really an outcast now and all because of yesterday?" She rolled her eyes even more, thinking that those girls were third level, and they should be grateful that she was talking to them. She thought about calling her father, but remembered that he had recently asked if she could spend a certain amount on a shopping spree in an attempt to kiss her daughter, but she asked if things were so bad that he was cutting his pocketbook. Biting her fingernails, Jen thought that maybe everyone found out about her family's financial crisis, and that's why. She clenched her fists as she looked at the students in the cafeteria and thought that this was bad and how she would go there herself. But she, leaning against the door, saw Lee Doggin at one of the tables. She wondered if everything was normal with her after yesterday with Wonjun, but then she saw that she was healthy and thought that the girl from the second level, or even the first level, was alive and well. Dagon even stopped chewing her food, looking surprised at Jean, who sat opposite her, noisily putting down her tray. The girl asked what she needed, returning to the meal, and asked where all her friends were. Jean bowed her head and said that they were not her friends. Clenching her hands into fists, the girl embarrassedly continued that they were not her friends because of yesterday's embarrassment and because of the crisis in her father's company. And also, it is Doggin's fault, and everything is on her conscience. But she only got angry, asking who this miracle was from. Jian couldn't believe how they could all treat her like that while she was eating her lunch, and Doggin wondered if she was eating her lunch or her snacks. Jian said that she couldn't go on like this and that she would go with her after the lessons. About Lee Doggin, she thought to herself that if she didn't do that, she would continue to howl. She said that she was busy, but the girl started rehearsing that she said that Doggin is now responsible for everything and that they go after school together and she will post it on social media. Dagon thought that this might play into her hand after all, because she would be able to ask more about the boys, and she agreed, saying that she didn't care. When the girls arrived, Jen happily said that they were there and had to go, but here she still stopped as if she had been buried, seeing where they had come. Jian tried on another outfit, asking the girl how she looked. She was visibly nervous, saying that it was nice, but she had been stuck here for 3 hours. And while the worker helped with the fasteners, Jian said that Doggin is weaker than it seems because she is already tired. Now Lee Doggin was standing in a beautiful suit, looking incredible in everything from Chanel, but she could barely stand on her heels. Jen told the worker that they would both go for it, while Doggin screamed in questioning and disbelief. The girl announced the amount of the purchase. It was more than 9 million won, when Hien handed over her card with a sweet smile, and Doggin behind her opened her mouth in grief. They turned around. Huang Jian said that it was a gift for becoming her friend. And although it is not much, she said that Doggin should wear it with pleasure. The girl was both angry and confused, wondering if she misunderstood the word "a little." They ate at a restaurant where Doggin had never been before. She really liked the food, she said, complimenting the taste. Doggin asked why the girl was looking like that, and she, bending down a little, asked with a smile to say honestly that she was of the first level. She asked if she was upset about yesterday, because she overdid it, and said that Wonjun was not one to just stand by, and asked how she handled him. She remembered saying out loud that he was a jerk, but then asked about the Wonjun Corporation that Chien was talking about. Jian recalled Oh Wonjun's face as she narrated, saying that the company was founded 20 years ago and rose to the top very quickly and for unknown reasons. Jian said that Doggin does not know anything about them, and they, looking at her, do not understand who she is and where she is from. The girl continued to guess, asking if she was from some foreign company or maybe from the Hind family. Recalling yesterday's situation, she said that everyone misunderstood her and started to tell that yesterday Hyehyun and Wonjun. But she did not finish, because Jian screamed as if she had been killed, scaring the girl. In a panic, she asked if it was the same Lee Jaehyun. Remembering the guy who always had a perfect look, she said that despite the fact that almost nothing is known about him, he is in the first level, and he is generally top 1 in this level. As Jian spoke, Dagan thought that the first level, about which almost nothing was known, might be the one they were looking for. Blushing, Jian asked if Jaehyun was interested in the girl. She said that everything would be fine, but Dagan took the girl by the collar and, telling her to stop pushing, dragged her to the exit. Jian said, holding the girl's hand so that she would not worry and that everything that was discussed today would remain between them. But Dagan was angry, because the more she made excuses, the worse the effect was. When she got to the car, the girl asked if she could give Dagan a ride, but she assured that she would get there on her own. As Hwang left, Lee Dagan looked down at her new outfit. Sitting on the bench, she exhaled, thinking that the day had been difficult, but productive for information. Finally getting her foot out of the shoes that were crushing her, she thought Wonjun was not an option while Chaehyun was. Bending down, Dagan thought about how everyone walks in those heels. Jaehyun appeared in front of her, silently handing the plaster, which made the girl look up. He said he saw her as he passed by, looking down. He asked the girl to use what he gave her, and she opened her mouth, looking at him and not saying a word. Dagan thought the boy had a tendency to appear out of nowhere, but she was still staring at the Band-Aid he gave her. She looked up, holding out the plaster, and thanked, but wanted to give. But there was no sign of the boy. Catching up to Jaehyun, she grabbed his sleeve to stop him and give him the patch. Holding out the box, the girl told the boy that she had used it and asked him to take the rest back, and thanked her. Glancing at the girl, Jaehyun looked at her in confusion and couldn't believe that she had decided to give him the rest. The guy turned around and wanted to leave, telling her to keep it for herself because he gave her plenty. He took his hand away from her and took a few steps forward. Aide Dagan overtook him, saying that it would not go like that, and persistently asked him to wait a moment. Folding her hands in embarrassment, the girl said that she was very grateful for the help and muttered, asking if he would mind a cup of coffee. She looked sweetly at the boy, smiling faintly and asking what he would say to that. But she thought that, of course, she wouldn't be able to do anything. Scratching his neck and visibly embarrassed, he began to mumble something about how there was something else he needed to do. But before that, he said a firm and confident yes to her offer. Turning around, he left, telling Dagan to follow him, because they were going to a coffee shop. She looked at the boy's trail and was confused, thinking that maybe something would work out for her. After some time, they sat in the room and Dagan received her order, coffee and dessert. Haehyun didn't even have time to wish the girl something delicious, while the waitress didn't even have time to walk away, wide-eyed at what happened. Blushing, Dagan chewed and thought that someone had thought of stuffing a croissant into the waffle maker, but it was still delicious. Deciding that she had to act while the boy looked away and folded his arms across his chest, Dagan asked if the boy was here often. But he was also peeing with emotions that everything could break down. I thought why he didn't say anything and that some approach had to be found. Looking bored, Lee Jae-hyun asked who sent her, looking directly at the girl. She leaned a little in confusion, looking back without blinking and asking what he meant. Dagan opened her mouth in surprise as she listened to what the boy was saying. There was no story of her transition to school. She was too good at fighting, and he asked if she thought she was hiding so well. He waited for her to confess before things got complicated, and wondered if she really didn't understand that she had been hiding badly. Crossing his legs, Jaehyun waited. Thinking that he wouldn't have laid down his cards if he wasn't sure, she decided to play the game to the last, and, surprised, asked if he didn't think she was a spy. She said that martial arts have been her hobby since childhood, and that she hides her status. At first, the girl asked if he was the same, but then added with a smile that she was definitely not. The boy thought about hearing that she could prove her parentage if there was no risk of public disclosure. Digging into her dessert, the girl said that she had been at school recently and had not earned trust in herself, but he was a different matter, because he had been at school for more than 2 years. Dagan asked why he hides his identity then, and if there is a reason why when people find out. But she didn't finish because the boy interrupted her. After taking a sip of coffee, he said that it was enough and they would end there, and the girl, getting a little angry, thought that she hadn't planned to start. He hid his face in a cup of coffee, while the girl said that it was he who was gathering information behind her back, and maybe that's why he followed her so calmly. Dagan still thought that his suspicions were not groundless, and that she understood his logic. The girl remembered Janoon, who now looked as neutral as possible, comparing him to Jaehyun. Interrupting her train of thought, the boy asked the girl if she was dating Han Jonun. She began gesticulating, telling the boy to forget what he had seen in the first aid station. He agreed, then stood up and walked out of the cafe with his hands in his pockets, asking if she was going to get home on her own. She stood up, deciding to leave as well, but her leg buckled and the girl began to fall. Jaehyun caught her by grabbing her shoulder. Closing his eyes and visibly making a decision he didn't like, he told her to hold his hand. After a few minutes, they were walking down the street, and Dagan was holding the boy's hand. They stopped on the sidewalk, and the girl turned her head and sighed, noticing something. Jaehyun asked what happened. She, still looking somewhere to the side, said that everything was fine and nothing had happened. Dagan asked if a bodyguard was attached to the boy, and he asked her the same. Playing her role, she confidently answered that she did not feel the need for it. A car stopped near them, from which Cho Tae-hun looked out and said with a smile that they looked like they were on a date. He looked as if he had come back to life, and asking a sick patient to take her away from a date is another decision. The boy watched as she got into the car and talked to her driver, looking as if he suspected something. When they were in the car together, the boy cheerfully asked what this new disguise was, and she, gritting her teeth, told him to look at the road. Looking out the window, Dagan said that she would tell later who it was, because it wasn't the Jonggun Tae-hun knew about, and she told him to drive faster. She looked in the mirror, seeing that Jaehyun was closely watching them, so she said that they had a watcher. When she did leave, Lee Jae-hyun took out a pack of cigarettes and took one and put it in his mouth. One of the guards lit a cigarette for him, and another said that the chairman had ordered him to be brought to him. Back, Jaehyun told the guard that he was telling him to work clean when he remembered that something happened yesterday. The boy scratched awkwardly as he entered Wonjun's chamber and said they needed to talk. He kicked the fourth-level guy who was kneeling, acting as a footrest for him, and told him he wanted to get up and ordered him to ask him to get down. Standing up, Wonjun asked his friend what he wanted to talk about. The boy asked if it wasn't Wonjun, while the boy himself frowned and stared at the phone screen. The boy did not lie, telling him to be careful, because he does not know what kind of people these are. But then Wonjun told his friend not to worry, because he doesn't worry about any of this himself. When he returned, Wonjun was about to leave, telling him to shoot if he didn't like it. But his friend didn't stop and put a hand on his shoulder, asking him to wait. Throwing his hand away, the boy squinted and repeated what he said to score. Wonjun stopped as soon as he heard what his friend shouted. He asked what has happened to him lately, and what if Jaehyun finds out about it. Hearing that he was not like that at all, the boy did not even turn around, but turned to the boy next to him, calling him glasses and pointing with his finger to him to come closer. As soon as the boy took off his glasses, probably knowing what to prepare for, Wonjun swung and punched him in the face. No one reacted as Wonjun swung at the boy again, and he yelped, covering himself with his hands from the blow. But the boy received one more blow, right in the nose, splattering even more blood around, because even before that, she had fallen to the floor. He fell to his knees, covering his face with his hands and moaning in pain, right at the feet of the one who struck him. With a vein appearing on his face, Wonjun turned to his friend, Kim Yoon-tae, and asked why he always crossed the line, since he used to be more gentle and didn't hurt anyone. Approaching the door of the classroom where the boy was still standing, Wonjun leaned against it and asked if he should also deal with his level. Yoon-tae stammered apologetically. After telling him to drop it if he has everything, Wonjun now looked at the friend. Jonggun, helping the boy with a broken face to his feet, called Wonjun and asked if he would leave everyone alone already. He turned around, wide-eyed, when he heard him say that he was out for a moment, and here it is, and that he thinks it's all because of that one time in Dagan. Wonjun asked what he just said. With a smile, Janoon asked back if he would beat him too. Enraged that the veins all over his face were strained, he began to throw insults at Junun. Kicking the locker that was right next to the door, he said he wouldn't get hit, certainly not him, and asked if he was satisfied. Standing alone in the corridor, Jonan heard someone call his name. It was Lee Jae-hyun who handed the package to the boy. Jae-hyun told the boy to hand it to Lee Dagan while Jonan looked at him in surprise. Opening the package, he saw that it was a uniform, asking if it was Dagan's school uniform, but he understood that it was. As they walked down the hall together, the boy asked why her uniform ended up in Jae-hyun's. Interrupting the girl's conversation, Jonggun placed the bag with the girl's uniform on the desk and, sitting across from her, asked what she did with Lee Jae-hyun yesterday. Dogun looked at the package with her uniform in surprise, thinking she had lost it, but asked aloud where Jonan got it from. He replied that Jae-hyun asked to convey. The boy listened with a smile as she said that they had seen each other last night, but behind the smile he did not forget to ask if it was just the two of them. Comparing the evening and the meeting with only the two of them, he now, without a smile and with a twinkle in his eyes, asked where the boy got her clothes from. The girl looked at him, wondering what was happening. While Dogun and Jonggun were arguing that he didn't think it up, and he was still asking about the clothes, Chien looked on cutely. Blushing a little, she thought about the fact that the atmosphere around her was somehow unclear. And did Dagon meet Jae-hyun after meeting her? Looking at the two of them still arguing, the girl thought that Dogun had the right to pretend that everything was wrong, and that Yunin was visibly upset by the encounter. Returning to Jian, Dogun looked at her with anger, making every appearance to help, while the girl came back to reality from her thoughts about the love triangle. Hwang Ji-yeon still intervenes, showing June a photo of the two of them at the mall and saying that the girl was with her yesterday and that she took off her uniform to change into new clothes. Looking at the photo, the boy grunted when Dogun attacked him and said that this is exactly how everything was, and also called him a jerk. When Jonggun said that he also wanted to see the girl in other clothes, Dogun herself was visibly displeased, and Chien blushed, putting her hands over her mouth in emotion. They both looked questioningly at Jean, not understanding what she was talking about when she asked the boy if he wanted to go to her then. But she said that she and Dagon had agreed to go to her place, and said that she would make an exception for Yonan, although she would not call the boys to her. The girl shouted something about asking her, but the two had already agreed on Monday. When she came to their headquarters, Tae-hoon drew his attention to her, turning away from the computer and stating that she had already returned. He asked with a smile how she was doing, because now it was closer to the school, and whether she had already gotten used to this room. He said that there was nothing to do when the girl said about the air conditioner and the old building, because there was no better place in terms of security, payment, and road. The boy asked what was wrong with her, but Dogun, with a displeased face, told him to try to return to school himself, and they would look at him then. The girl approached when Tae-hoon asked what kind of computer it was and where she bought it, because nothing worked on it, not even games. But there was only that on the flash drive, an old photo of a man with some kind of bundle in his hands. Dogun wondered if men could get pregnant now, and when Tae-hoon asked if it was hard at school now, she explained that he was in the hospital room with a baby in his arms. He said that this man seemed to have been sick and died 18 years ago, and asked her if she was sure that he was Janoon's father. Looking at his database, Tae-hoon explained that he had searched everywhere, and what he found had nothing to do with Han Jong-gun. He said that there was no point in looking in the past, but he also said that the boy was not so simple. At the same time, Jonan himself was lying on the bed and looking at the photo in front of him, old, crumpled, and with creases. The girl was standing in front of the man on the chair, who no longer had a head. She was covered in blood, wiping her face so that other people's blood would not interfere. Standing at the entrance, when everyone around her was already dead, she asked why she had to contact the boss. When the guy on the other end of the phone asked her about it, she took the phone away from her ear, hearing there that the boss must have gotten something from Lee's head. The girl ran, remembering the words that she must destroy that place and run as far as possible and never return for anything in her life, and that the boss's messages were forwarded to voicemail. Dogun ran as fast as she could, mentally scrolling through the messages going to voicemail. She was scared. Falling down on the asphalt, she screamed and covered her face with her bloody hands, thinking only of why she couldn't dare to return to her seat. The boss shouted at her to get up as soon as possible. With screams, she woke up and waved her hand, painfully hitting the one who tried to wake her up. She was angry and confused, saying that he scared her, while Tae-hoon said that she must have broken his neck. After some time, the girl said that it was time for a briefing, preparing for the discussion. She said that there are 374 students in the school, but the majority must be excluded from them, and there are 34. Another 18 are definitely not related to the head of Lee. And there is too little information on 18 others. She pointed to the 4 boys left, if you go by the logic that the head son is hiding on the first level, judging by the hierarchy in this school. The guy asked if there was a possibility that someone was deliberately hiding on the lower level so as not to attract attention. But I heard that the girl answered no. Looking at the photos they had, she said the separation was based on what they learned about each other or how well known their position was in society. But she remembered Janoon, only his eyes, saying that there was an exception because I'm on the first level because I'm here. After all, nothing was known about this boy anyway. She was looking at Lee Jae-hyun's photo, saying that there is a high probability that he will be exposed, because everyone says that nothing is known about him. Dogan said how would they determine his level if he didn't give something to reinforce it? They mentioned Oh Won-jun, who did almost nothing but held a lot of influence in the first level. The guy said that this asshole is the heir to the Won-jun company. Dogan talked about Won-jun's connection with the Scion Corporation, so she suggested that we better study the connection between Won-jun and Scion. Closing her eyes, the girl said that now about the most problematic type of this back. It was Han Jong-gun. It was on his photo that the girl pointed with a marker. Taekun, holding his head, screamed and asked who he looked like. Dogan began to shout that this guy is the most suspicious of all, because he is constantly chasing her and does not allow her to pass, as if he has gone mad. When he asked if he had fallen in love, Dogan screamed, saying that Taehoon had gone crazy and that it couldn't be. No one knows anything about the boy, although there are a lot of people at school. She continued that it was the first time she'd ever seen him, and by falling in love, Taehoon meant that he fell in love with the undercover agent, meaning her. The boy asked if the girl did not mean that he was getting close to her, knowing who she was, and asked if she understood that this was impossible at all. Taehyung also reminded that she is already dead to everyone in this world, and the girl, looking at her partner, said that for the world he is a genius who has not yet been born. At first, Dagan confidently said that there was no one who knew who they were, but then she wondered if she could. She remembered the boy who had attacked them in the previous lair. The boy said that it was enough to think about today, and that he should check on Oh Won-jun first. He asked if she might be leaving already, because she had already told everything while he pushed the girl out of the apartment. Dagan asked what was wrong with him. Won-jun sat on the couch in front of the other two, who said they were giving him the rest of the money for his work. The guy said that he does not take such handouts. The men said that they needed photos, and he, taking out his phone, said that there were no normal photos. He pointed to the girl with black hair, focusing on her and saying not to touch the one with pink hair, because there will be problems. One of the criminals said that if she is a schoolgirl, then he can go alone. Won-jun said that girl is just a bitch and showed his inset tooth that stood out against the others. He looked angry and scared of her at the same time. Another with a short haircut smoked a cigarette, looking at a photo on his phone and saying that the guy should not worry and that they would do everything. After lighting a cigarette, Won-jun listened to the two boys talk, wondering if she looked like the girl who had fun with his older brother earlier. After asking what they were about and saying to show, Won-jun reached for the phone. But the criminals said that it was a long time ago, almost 20 years ago. With a smile, the boy said that this is why he's asking to show them. After finding the right photo, one of the guys handed Won-jun the phone, saying that the black-haired girl he was talking about was in the background. Won-jun started laughing so hard that tears came out of his eyes. The boy stared up at the ceiling as the other two left, rejoicing at what he had learned. He muttered to himself that Lee Dogan was shaking his head more than he thought. Opening her eyes, the girl heard something about irrational equations in the background, but her gaze focused on the person in front of her. Jonan was lying on the desk next to her and looking at her without taking his eyes off her. The girl abruptly sat up straight, embarrassed by the situation. She looked at the boy in surprise, asking what he was doing here. Jean yawned, telling herself that she was very tired and that it was cruel to make math the last lesson. The girl asked why it was Janoon who changed classes during class and where his bag was, but the boy with a familiar smile said that he usually goes without a bag. Jian appeared in front of them and, putting her hands on her sides, said that they were together again and asked if spring had come to them, that they were having fun with each other. And then she laughed, saying that they should go with her and she would arrange everything. Taking Dagan by the hand, the girl said that too many people were looking at them, and the girl agreed. The guy just silently walked next to him. Junan asked if they had a good weekend. Dagan said yes, adding that she studied him and she didn't look the happiest. And Jian said that she was writing to a girl. Hwang Ji-yeon joked that the boy, as Lee Dogan appeared, started going to school every day. He replied that it was not on purpose, and Dogan herself asked if he had not gone to school before. He awkwardly said that he had other things to do, when Jian said that all public people knew each other through each other, and it was normal. And Dogan asked if it was possible at all. Dogan told her friends to leave without her, forcing Jian to turn back while she said she needed to call home. Wonjun walked by, talking to someone, and punched the girl on the shoulder. Turning to face her, the boy told another friend that she was of low birth, hinting at what he knew about Dogan. She stood and listened, dropping the phone. She looked around, thinking that he was an asshole, but she didn't even want to make eye contact with him and had to keep quiet and stay silent. Rubbing his shoulder, Wonjun mumbled under his breath that Dogan had steel shoulders while she let out a simple agov for him. She said that the screen was broken. The other guy said that she was the one who blocked the road, and Wonjun asked that she would make a fuss because of a small crack. But the girl said that he should pay for the repair and knock it down. Leaning over, he told her to be thankful that she wasn't charged for the knocked-out teeth, but Dogan told her to think that Jean's photo covered the cost. He clearly did not like this phrase. But still, he began to count out the money in his wallet, saying that it was very strange that someone like her ended up in their school. And then he threw money on the floor in front of the girl's feet, one bill after another. He asked with a smile if she had no money at all. She said that she could take the rest to pay for housing. He asked if he had given enough, but Dogan silently looked at him with a murderous look and thought to herself, maybe she should kill him. Tae-hoon then squeals that she cut Wonjun and stuck a fork in Ji-yeon's eye. She said she didn't kill them after all, but the guy yelled that she was crazy, and that's why he was telling her to keep herself in her hands. Tae-hoon screamed that these are not ordinary children, but the dates of the richest people in the country, and that she should quietly go to school and not get involved anywhere else. Closing her eyes to calm herself down, she remembered exactly what Juo Tae-hong had told her. Turning her back, the girl waved, saying that it was enough, and said goodbye to Wonjun. The guy was looking her way, deciding to play the card he had in his sleeve to catch her. He told her behind her back that she was just a copy of her mother. She turned her head, realizing he meant to say something. But Jonan's hand fell on her shoulder, telling them to go because Ji-yeon was waiting. He looked at the girl with a smile as they walked down the hall, and she closed her eyes as she thought about what Wonjun had said. As they were driving in the car, Hwang Ji-yeon didn't shut up, saying that Wonjun just doesn't know how to behave with those of lower status. That's why he's acting like an asshole. Returning to Dogan, the girl asked her, maybe the thing was the blow on the face. The boy asked when she managed to hit him, and Jin explained that it was on Dogan's first day at school. Janoon said that he was not up to it at the time. Frowning, the girl thought about the fact that Jonan didn't seem to care about anyone but her. Dogan calmly explained that Ji-yeon then wet herself in the dining room, and Wonjun caught everything on camera. Hwang turned around with a shout, and the boy snickered softly. Sitting up straight and blushing, she folded her hands on her chest indignantly and said that it was Lee Dogan's fault, and the first level on top of everything else. Hugging her bag, she asked why they thought so, and Jian said that it could not be otherwise. Squinting her eyes, she asked if Dagan was normal, but said that it didn't matter, because Wonjun himself wouldn't dare to touch her and wrote it down. Isn't it cool? Looking out the window, Junan said, he doesn't know if it's cool because Dagan has a bad temper, and he also has all kinds of techniques and looks like, don't touch for your own good. When Dagan asked how the family business was going, Jian told her to watch her words when they got out of the car. The girl happily ran into the room, inviting Dagan and Janoon inside. They stood and wondered if this was a room. Kian was offering to order food and asking what they wanted. When Dagan replied that she would eat anything in the world, Jonggun said the same. But Jian suddenly stood up, staring at the screen, and the girl wrote down what happened to her. Hwang literally screamed that Dad was on a video call. Dagan told her friend to answer and ask her to move so that she would not be seen in the frame. Pushing them both into the closet, Jean told them both not to make a sound because they can't get burned. Dagan was too close to the boy while Jian convinced her father that there was no boy in her room. She was visibly embarrassed to be standing like that with a boy. Dagan said that he was too close, and Yonan, placing his hands on her waist, told her to stand more quietly and not to twitch. The boy said that there was a hanger behind him, but he did not finish the sentence because he hit the iron hanger loudly with his head. The girl's father also heard, asking what the sounds were, and she opened her eyes. Dagan and Yonan stared into each other's eyes for an instant, hardly breathing. Jian was just showing Dad the wardrobe when Dagan called out to the girl. He began to shout that he heard a sound from the built-in wardrobe, and Jian said goodbye to everything in the world. Her father started yelling for her not to be friends with Wonjun because that guy is completely stupid, and she asked what he was all about. Jian was showing her father the closet as Dagan and Jonan were lying on the floor, holding the girl and covering her mouth so she wouldn't blurt out something else. Huang Jiyan was just apologizing to the boy and the girl because her father often behaves too much when she has a hangover. Screaming in pain, she covered her face with her hands. Li Dagan said she was going home. Jen asked not to go and at least eat because she defied her father and he could come and check at any moment. Jen and Jonan smiled as Dagan ate the food they had ordered. The guy asked when Dagan was going home, and she answered that she would finish eating and get ready. When he offered to take the girl out, Jen, who was sitting next to her, blushed. Han Jong-gun listened as he pressured her, and there was little he could do on the way home. The guy said that he understood her, but they would go together anyway. And when Dae-hyun asked why, all of a sudden, he simply said that he was worried about her because Wonjun. But the girl, while she was eating, said that she didn't care, even if she was joined by 100 others. They discussed how she sounded like a gang leader when she said that. And then Jian asked why Dagan was covered in sweat. Was she hot? And she just thought, did she get caught? When they asked why they always wound something on the knife, Dagan answered on the machine that the knife slips out of the hand without a guard. With a smile, the boy said that they wound something on the blades so as not to leave fingerprints and prevent death. He heard Dagan confirm it. The boy said it was logical, and Jian shrieked, asking him if he meant to say that she was stupid and couldn't even think. While Jiyen screamed that she was like plankton to him, and Jonggun said that even he had a brain, Dagan laughed heartily. The guy blurted out, speechless for a few seconds, and then said that it was the first time he had seen her smile. Blushing at his own words, he heard Huang Jian say that Dagan must be angry under that smile. Lying down on the couch, Jian asked if Lee Dagan liked being popular, but she asked what the girl meant. Laying back on Hyehyun's back, Dagan heard her say that she was going to get bored now, but it was a small revenge for remembering her recent walk with Jaehyun. The guy said that he would clean up while they were having fun, Jen whined, lying face down, and Dagan said that a human bed was incredible. Hwang said that Jonggun is so sweet and family-oriented, and when Daegyong asked her to date him, Ji-yeon assured her that he was not her type. The girl said that she likes more handsome and cute, but Dagan said that Yonan is still handsome and cute and what else is needed. Jian yelled to Junan, who was walking by with plates, that Dagan said he was handsome. And the girl herself broke away from the phone. She asked if the girl was tired of life, and Jen said that was exactly what she had said before, and then asked how many boyfriends she had. Hitting the back of Dagan's head painfully, Hwang raised her head and looked in the boy's direction. Jonan's eyes widened when he heard that Dagan didn't have a boyfriend, and Hien asked if he knew about it. Returning to the room, he said that he assumed such an option, and Jian asked how it could be, because the girl is simply beautiful. At that time, the boy's phone rang. As soon as Jonggun left to talk on the phone, Lee Dagan quickly gathered herself and said that she did not want to go with him, so she would leave now. Jian said that then they would be left alone, and it was embarrassing. Walking down the street, the girl closed her eyes and strained her neck, saying to herself that she was incredibly tired. Remembering the guy's words that he was worried about her, the girl thought, why should he worry at all? And he doesn't know yet that she came here to kill a person. Thinking back to Ji-yeon and Junun, she thought that they were a normal friendship and a normal relationship, and it made her feel terrible. Passing by a man, the girl thought that she had put on a school uniform and had completely relaxed, and that she would have to pull herself together. And then she turned her attention to the man who was smoking and looked at him suspiciously. The next moment, another unknown man put a knife to her throat, sneaking behind the girl's back. As she rolled her eyes and tried to stand up straight, the stranger leaned over and asked her if she was okay. He said he would kill her if she tried to run or scream, so her only option was to go silently with them. She only thought about Yonan's words that he was worried. The girl walked forward while one of the strangers pushed her behind. One of those who was waiting in the courtyard extended his hand to her and told her to come closer. When he put his hand on her shoulder and the girl was closer, she asked if it was Oh Wonjun. When the man looked at her questioningly, Lee Dagan said she asked them if it was Wonjun who sent them for her. She took the man's hand, which had been resting on her shoulder before, and squeezed it a little to push it away. The next moment, she broke the man's arm and slammed into his crotch, bending him in half. While the other two ran to her, the girl was already attacking the loser who was holding her shoulder. No one expected such resistance from her. The man tried to catch her, and then shouted to the others to catch the girl. Dagon attacked again as the man ran up to her, kicking him right under the chin. The girl had just repelled one attack, when another immediately rushed at her. He was holding a knife in his hands. He thrust a knife at the girl. Aloe missed. The girl dodged, bringing her hand in such a way as to attack again. She clenched her teeth, feeling pain in her shoulder where the blade had caught her a little, but swung. She elbowed him and punched him in the face, using all her strength as he winced in surprise and pain. And then, pressing her hand into his temple, she kindly rested her head against the wall of the nearest house. Lee Dagan picked up the knife dropped by one of the attackers, then bandaged the wound on her hand with her teeth. She looked very scary, which caused the criminals to question. One of them moved the other, telling him to get out of the way, while the fat man said that she had changed and was like a different person. He raised his fists, taunting her and saying that although she's unusual and likes to fight, does she know the difference between a fight and a sport? But he did not have time to finish. Dagan rushed at him with a knife, attacking quickly and knowing exactly where to hit. But he did pull out a knife in the fight and put it to her stomach, while the girl tried not to let herself be hit with the blade. He told her that she had a really stupid temper. He said, leaning closer, that he was saying this like an adult, and that she, the little abomination, was not up to his level. But after knocking him off his feet, the girl grabbed the knife again and ran after him, while the two of them fell to the asphalt. A fat man flew at her, trying to attack, but her reaction was quick. The girl kicked him in the chest with a full swing. She, with bulging eyes filled with bloodlust, brought the knife to finally kill the leader of this gang, but he screamed for her to stop. She heard Tahoon's voice yelling, telling her not to touch anyone unrelated to the case. The girl took a few steps away without killing him, but the man sat and said that although she surprised him, she still remained a child, no matter what she did. Dagan looked at him through her fingers, listening to him scoff that she didn't have the nerve to stab someone. He said that there were many of them and asked how long she would be able to fight them all. The guy offered to just go in different directions on it. But she once again kicked the boy in the face, suddenly standing next to him again. Taking his phone and ID, Dagan thought that they were just low-grade thugs because everything was disposable. The girl wondered if they were definitely not from Lee's head and whether Wonjun really thought of something so stupid as to send thugs after her. But the next moment, a boy standing behind her hit the girl on the head with a bottle, smashing it against Dagan's skull and causing her to bend over from the impact. Throwing the unconscious girl in his shoulder, the boy left the yard and said under his breath that these fools could not catch even one girl. The boy entered the room, asking Jeanne de Dagan when she scrunched up her embarrassed face. Janoon thought when he heard that it had been 10 minutes since she left. He was already imagining how and where to catch up with her. He was about to leave, and Jian asked if he was really so worried about the girl and said that Dagan definitely shouldn't be worried about her skills. She said she would call the girl later and said goodbye to the boy until tomorrow. Han Jong-gun walked down the street and tried to call the girl, but every time he was redirected to an answering machine because the phone was turned off. But he saw some guy sitting and talking on the phone, saying that some they were careless. He looked, to put it mildly, not very. Jonan walked over and took the boy's phone from his hands with one movement. He listened in silence as the place changed, and now it was an abandoned factory in the mountains. The unknown said that the boy should not be late. Beaten, he grabbed the schoolboy by the chest and leaned towards him, asking what he thought he had just done. Jong-gun calmly asked if he was from Yonban. Because of all places, Wonjun couldn't have hired them. The criminal looked up and down, still holding the boy's sweatshirt and telling him that he was right. He asked who this boy was when Janoon knocked someone else's hand away from him, and then he turned and walked away without saying a word. The beaten man shouted, calling him an asshole, who he was, when the boy sat down and blood was visible on the floor. But the criminal did not lie and shouted whether everything is normal with the little one with ears. Picking up the blood with his finger, Han Jong-gun said that he knows people like him, what they fear most, what threats they use most often. And then he asked if his boss was Chief John. Crouching opposite, Yonan asked, looking into the boy's eyes, where the factory where Dagan was being held was located. The girl regained consciousness after cold water was poured into her face. She coughed at it. Squinting one eye, she stared at the person in front of her, trying to focus. Sitting in front of her was a smiling Oh Wonjun, asking if she had regained consciousness. She began to check whether her hands were tied, but the boy, sitting on the chair opposite, told her not to even try because her hands were firmly tied. He said that she also had a fight in the yard. Wonjun glared at her, asking what she was doing while the girl just counted how many people were there. So that she would not look at him with that look, the boy hit the girl in the chest with the sole of his foot, applying quite a lot of force. Pressing his boot to her neck, Wonjun said what was she saying and asked if she didn't understand what was happening at all, because she had been kidnapped. Dagon grinned. Beaten and bloody, she remained calm, but said that of course she had to show character and asked what the boy would do. She leaned forward when the boy said he was going to have fun with her and scornfully told her he was worthless. He looked at the girl in surprise, asking if she had said everything. Wonjun asked how many times he had to hit her before the girl would finally come to her senses and understand what was happening. And when she laughed, he asked what made her happy. The girl looked at him with a smile, asking if he lacked the courage to figure it out on his own. He looked at her and said that there is no point in someone like him getting his hands dirty when there is money that will make anyone do anything for you. He asked how much one could rule with only force. He said that brawlers like her rule the streets, and when they grow up, they work for people like him. But he turned his head to the girl in surprise when she said that it was a delusion, because he was always destined to be lower than his friend. Dagon called Wonjun Lee Jae-hun's girlfriend with a smile. She continued, smiling and saying that it would be fun because he seemed to hate people like Wonjun. The guy laughed, saying that's why people like her are low class, because Jae-hyun covered for her once and she already thinks she knows him well. Hearing that Wonjun was necessary for Jae-hyun, the girl thought about what he had just said. The girl wondered if it wasn't a bluff when the boy said he wanted to show her something and asked if she wondered how he knew she looked like her mother. She thought that all this could not be because all the information about her had been destroyed. But the boy got a photo of her mother and 3 other men in a domestic atmosphere. He said that at first he looked at the woman in front and wondered if it was Dagon, because then he noticed a little girl in the background. Holding a photo in front of the girl, he called her a corpse and asked how she even got into their school with such a past. She sat and listened as Wonjun laughed, saying that mother and daughter were the same, and asked if that was the way she was attracted to Junun. Dagon listened without saying anything when he said that he only had to say the word, so that not only would she be expelled from the school, but all the influential families would block her from any way up. He had already asked what it was like to fall while trying to get under, but he didn't finish, because the girl interrupted him, which caused him complete surprise. The girl asked if he had kidnapped her to show the photo, and then they argued, and the girl still told him to go and tell if, of course, he could. When he asked the reason for which he would not be able to tell, the girl said with a strange gleam in her eyes that he would simply die today. Wonjun laughed, asking if that was all, and said he was hoping for more. Taking the girl by the hair, the guy brought his fist in, telling her to try and calling her a bitch. As he began to ramble on about how she would even try to kill him, she kicked him in the face with a sharp motion. He stood on all fours, cursing Dagon while she just looked at him and didn't say a word. She smiled, asking if his sixes had told him how good she was with her feet. Holding his ear, he muttered as he turned to the girl. Wonjun shouted to his mercenaries not to interfere while he dealt with her on his own, as one of them just appeared behind him. Picking up a baseball bat from the floor, he said that if so, he would gladly leave her without legs for the rest of her life. Swinging, the boy told the girl to say goodbye to life, and even then she just sat, not closing and not showing fear. At the same time, Taehoon looked at the phone screen, where there were no new messages from Dagon, but she said that her friend would. He thought that she had been there for so long, because it was already past 12, and the girl was still not there, and she had not even written anything during all this time. The guy was looking at her location tracker, which was currently showing nothing, and wondered what she was even doing there, and thought she was hanging out with Jonan. But then a message appeared on the screen that GPS was disabled. He couldn't believe that the connection was lost, checking everything again. One of the mercenaries asked what happened to the girl's phone, and the other replied that he had taken care of it and everything was clean. They were both looking at the boy whose bat was already covered in blood, and the girl's leg was lying at a wrong angle. They discussed that Wonjun would actually kill her. The boy poked her with a bat, asking if she had already put her legs back, because Dagon was apparently unconscious and showed no signs of life, her head bowed. When she still didn't answer him, the guy threw the bat in hysterics, saying that she was the one who pissed him off. He looked scared that he might have killed her. One of them came and sat opposite to check on her and tried to feel her pulse, while the other asked if the girl was alive. Then suddenly she raised her head and with a quick movement grabbed the man by the throat, tightly clenching her fingers and looking as if she had come out of hell itself. And while the other asked what he was doing there, the boy in Dagon's hand tried to break free, wheezing and foaming at the mouth. The one with a wrapped hand asked if the girl was dead, while Won-jun looked questioningly at the boy, and the boy was shaking from what was happening and that he was not getting enough oxygen. He walked over and put a hand on his companion's shoulder to check if he was okay. But as soon as he touched the boy, he fell helplessly to the floor, causing surprise on the mercenary's face. He rolled his eyes. Lee Dagon was sitting there with her arms loose and startled everyone around. Won-jun jumped off his chair and shouted, asking what the hell. The others backed away from her. They couldn't believe how she got out, and Won-jun didn't even understand how she could get up after the injuries from the beating. The girl held her head while everyone around her shouted that they did not understand anything. She tried to maintain clarity of thinking, and after such injuries it was not easy. All battered and bloody, the girl removed her hand from her face and looked at everyone in front of her. It even seemed that she was smiling a little. Dagon called out to Won-jun, looking directly at him and telling him to wait for her because he would be the last on her list. He was visibly frightened now, sweat streaming down his face and eyes wide as he looked at her and took in what she had said.